This video is for entertainment purposes only. Let's roll! Hi. 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 Can you hear her? Get the microphone turned toward me so I can talk. It turns out that if I clear enough stuff in this garage, clean enough things, and I leave open areas, my cat will jump up and want to play with me. How about that? If everything's cluttered, and she just kind of used to stay on the ground until I got everything cleaned in the garage finally, after my old man passed away. Yeah, look at you. The cat will want to jump up and play around. Isn't that neat? Hi, it's a camera. It's Annabelle. You're going to be famous, Annabelle. You're going to be on the internets. Annabelle. Annabelle. Hey, sugar. Yes. Yes. Yes, I know. Well, just relax. Yeah, it's turning out pretty good. Okay, so, got the slider cabinets in that I did. And so, I don't know. I'll show the video when I got it all done, but I had some broken polycarbonate. I had messed up and broke a piece of polycarbonate back here. And so, anyway, leaning next to this thing for like the last 20 years was a piece of this literally 1/4 inch tinted plexiglass, polycarbonate, acrylic, whatever it is. And so I just took that thing out front and cut it off with a cutoff saw. And I look like my jacket looked like it's covered in cobwebs. Halloween came a day late. And but yeah, it's awesome. It's not moving anywhere. I got actually that is actually not even moving with the uniform screws around it. It's staying perfectly still. I just put those extra 2 screws in the cubby holes there down there. It looks a little odd, but that's just to kind of just to keep it from moving. But this stuff is actually immovable. As far as I could tell, there's going to be no vibration. That other end had a big shard down the side of it there, and it was horrible, rough. And finally, I realized that's plexiglass in that piece of cardboard next to me here. And here's where I repainted. And right there, that's where the plexiglass, where that stuff is. I took it out and I'm gonna cut this and put this in. I'm not gonna buy another $100 worth of plexiglass to put on this thing. I'm gonna put this in, and of course, being more experienced at cutting and at drilling, I did a lot better. I mean, the cuts. I'm not gonna have a perfect cut, but I got it pretty straight. Like down here, you can see a little bit of a crooked spot on the end there, but I thought it turned out okay. Basically, just filler content. Pretty much me just making things so I can help the algorithm, help the video move up, help the channel move up, stuff like that. So this is going to be kind of interesting. And so for me, because this is kind of a trip down memory lane. Now these 3 over here, 2 of those you already seen on the other video, but I'll start with those. Again, maybe it may seem a little bit redundant to you, but I probably won't show them again. So these are small knives that I made, and what this was made out of was actually fiberglass. First of all of these are made out of fiberglass resin and some sort of composite handle. All of these are made out of fiberglass resin in some sort of textile that I purchased and cut separately, and I went ahead and pressed it into a block, and then began to grind it. Sometimes colorations turned out pretty good on some of them. In hindsight, maybe I would have liked to base it with a little bit of resin or sealer of some kind. I don't know what that would have done. But I'll tell you some interesting phenomenons I discovered. Where's my coffee? While doing this. So let me just get going here, okay? So all of these here are made out of O1. That was the steel of choice back when I was making knives. And I think these came from, I don't know if it came from a solid blank. Then one was a partial blank. Then I think I might have made something else out of the other one. But anyway. So anyways, these were made from duck cloth and fiberglass resin. and they're basically a is that showing up there? Maybe I should switch to autofocus. And so these are basically it's canvas and a fiberglass resin pressed into a block and then ground to shape. Now it really picked up the dirt when I shaped it, so it's kind of, I mean, I would have actually liked to have something a little more sealed, a little more saturated. One of these is kind of interesting because these kind of do vary a little bit in quality, not quality, but in characteristic, I should say. They're both, you know, like this one here, it's a little rough, but it doesn't really, I mean, it doesn't really pick up the dirt so much. It's a little more wider, fits a little better in the hand, a little more on the drier end. This one here is a little more on the resiny end. And then this one here, this one actually seems like it's the hardest of all of them. Kind of does pick up a lot of the dirt. Then right here, I ground that off, and that seems to actually be a nice barrier of resin with a nice red example of the cloth that's underneath all of it. But everything else that's exposed fiber-wise picked up a lot of dirt during the buffing process. But it's an O1 piece of O1 steel, and you know, I mean, it was good. It was good. Like I say, one guy overseas, in my last video, one guy overseas wanted me to send him one, but I wasn't about to do that. Not without enough of a social media presence where he can sell me some knives over there. And I didn't know what his customs agency would have done anyway. So these three here are in denim. Okay. So this one here, this is like a buoy that I made. I don't know. It's I'm not going to say what it's called. There's a lot of, it was just kind of, I don't know. It was just kind of an awkward time for me as a knife maker. But anyway, you know, my dad and I were talking, and he kind of just says, and I'm always like a regular size handle, and he just kind of said that the larger handle poses some more advantages. You should make a larger handle. So I did. I just took him up on his advice and basically made the handle about as long as the blade. And this is denim and fiberglass resin that's been pressed together into a block. This is actually You think that's actually some kind of tubing? It's not. It's actually steel rod that I chamfered and drilled holes down into. It's not a tubing at all. It's not pressed tubing. I wouldn't mind actually going back in and punching those out and putting stainless steel tubing in and hitting it with that. But it's kind of a cool design. I made like a choke point up here, you know, and that ball kind of fits in my hand. Flat ground, kind of a Bowie style blade. I mean, it feels great in the hand. I mean, I tell you what, I wouldn't mind making a Kydex holster and carrying this thing. You know, it's kind of got a lot of reach with the handle here, and I can reach here with this handle here. You know, I mean, there's different points of leverage I could take with it. I never really tried batoning wood or anything like that, but it's actually I actually do kind of like some of the features of the blade. Finish isn't so bad. It wasn't meant for sale, really. I mean, I always had a hard time taking those vertical scratches out of the steel. But I mean, all in all, it actually is a pretty good effort at a rubbed finish. And you know, this time around, though, since I'm not making them and I'm just taking my sweet time doing them, you're probably going to see a lot better finishing. I used to try to provide more value as far as making the knife more inexpensive and more affordable, so I just wouldn't go in. Like I told one guy told me one time I had some really crude knives, and I was talking during a conversation with another guy, so I said, yeah, some guy online said I had some crude knives. They said my knives were very crude, and I said, well, they get appropriate pricing for an appropriate amount of custom knife. I can sit there and rub the thing for, you know, so many hours, but it's going to run the price up. It's just going to, it's going to run the price up. So that's that, you know. And if I ever do sell a knife, I'm not taking the knife back and refinishing it. No way. It's theirs. They hit buy, they bought it. Once it ships, it's theirs. I'm not taking it back and refinishing that thing after they tear it all up. Anyways, this is another kind of a long, kind of like almost a machete style knife. It's out of denim and fiberglass resin pressed into blocks and then shaped. This is actually OD green Krylon painting on the Kydex with a leather loop for the sheath. I did actually have some straight legit green Kydex. I just didn't want to use it for this project, but this is kind of an interesting project. I probably could have used more distal taper on this blade. I'll be honest, I probably could have closed this up, made this point a little more pointed. Finish isn't bad. It's kind of more of a like back in the day, custom car painters used to do what's called prism painting, where they would paint like an X, like in a series of stars across. And that's the way I used to do some of my sanding back in the day. And, you know, I did a pretty, you can see a lot of holster wear, and, you know, deep down, you can see vertical streaks from the machine still there. But I did a pretty good job of actually scratching a lot of that out, blocking a lot of that out. And here's the grip here. The grip's is a denim and resin mixture, stainless steel tubing holding it, have a bit of a palm swell, kind of a bird's beak type handle, and it's actually a pretty good little thumper. I mean, later on, I'm not going to get back on the machine and try to close this up. I'd rather reattempt it at a new knife. I'm not going to mess with this knife, but it did handle pretty good as far as cutting. I wish I would have made it a little more thinner of a material, but it's pretty nice. Fits good in the hand. So that's that. I never named that one. This one here, this is actually a pretty cool design. I'm actually pretty happy with this one. This is the same thing. It's a denim and fiberglass resin. This time around, I don't know. See, these here are dyed. Some of this denim is dyed red with RIT dye. And I think I did dye some of these, so I would kind of add a few, then add a few color, then add a few in green. So it was green and red dye for the strips. But this sheath is actually pretty huge, and this is actually 01, and pretty amazing. These are actually stored in the sheaths. This one here is stored in vegetable tan leather, and it's not rusty. I'm going to make sure I don't get any change in humidity out here while I'm doing this video. And this one here is actually pretty interesting. This is kind of an over-engineered, pretty thick sheath. I mean, and later on, I kind of wish I would have made a little thinner profile sheath, but it holds the knife pretty well. So I'll take this thing out and I'll show it. This one here, kind of polished that edge a little more. Still some vertical scratches. I'm never too proud of those. I'm never really proud of those. But it's got a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's a recurve. It's like a recurve maybe starting. There's a swedge, and the swedge is actually, there's more of a polish on the swedge and more of a natural grain on the flats. I never was much of those people. I mean, I hate to tell you the truth. Flats are a pretty boring job to do. And I tell you what, shout out to those people who can actually do flats and make a pretty crisp contrast between a polished edge and a flat, because there's nothing more boring than a flat and getting an edge to sync up symmetrical on both sides. I mean, it's just frustrating. But anyway, this thing's been pretty good. This is actually kind of a combination grip where I hold it back here, and then I have an area with a ball kind of in the center where I could choke up like this and do some closer work if I have to. So it's been pretty good. And I'll tell you an interesting phenomenon. Whatever reason, a few times I left these outside on the Kydex press, in somewhat inclement weather, and I would come out here, and all those other knives were these two knives here were untouched. And this knife, for whatever reason, when it's laying there, this steel would be completely bone dry. But this particular batch of material that I made, there would be all these little water droplets and dew droplets across there, just all building up from the dew point from the weather at night. I thought that was kind of interesting. That was kind of bizarre that happened. But all in all, I kind of wish I would have been able to make this thing out of a different steel that's a little more rust resistant. Maybe I could have done a bluing or a parkerization on this knife. I thought it would have been a lot nicer, but I do love this blade design. And, I tell you what, if the zombie apocalypse ever hit, I would not hesitate to grab this knife, put a good edge on it, and carry it through the zombie apocalypse as a fixed blade, because it is going to hold up very well. So, you know, all in all. And I made a similar version with my cart with a G10 handle, and you know, and both of these knives I would totally take into harm's way. So anyway, just kind of another quick filler vid tube algorithms. I hear what a lot of creators talk about when they talk about the algorithm. And but personally, I kind of don't mind the algorithm, because it means that everyone kind of has a chance. It isn't just like you get a bunch of people together and it's like the, you know, the popularity, and the guy who's most popular, they put him up on a pedestal or whatever. This time around, everybody kind of gets in front of other people for views, you know. Not that I actually had a problem getting in front of other people's eyes for views, but this is going to be kind of interesting to see how this all pans out. And I'm kind of curious because this is sort of a legacy account because it is an older email account. But when I logged on YouTube on here, it showed that I just joined. So I went back and I deleted a lot of accounts. So I think I might have actually deleted the old account and reinitiated a new account. So this is coming out a new account. And to tell you the truth, in the modern age, I'd rather have a new account, start over again, and build the metrics from a solid background than have a legacy account. Because a lot of those legacies that were my old viewership, who knows? They may be dead accounts. They may not be watching anymore. They might have moved on to other things. I mean, it was over, you know, 10 years ago in some cases that I was on here messing around with this knife making business. And now it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I'm actually kind of excited that I'm building a new account from new. And my other channel that I have, it actually grew quite a few on there just kind of on its own. It was kind of interesting how to see it just kind of prosper a little bit, that it's prospered. It's kind of grown up on its own, and it's beginning to take off. And I haven't done any uploads to it recently, so once I get on solid footing, it's going to be pretty good from then on out. I'm going to hope to have the interesting content. I hope to be doing a lot of reading and learning a lot of new things. And I'm learning a lot of new things from some of these newer knife makers. To be honest, a long time ago, you know, you wanted to know something about knife making, you had to go read a book. And sometimes it was hard to concentrate, a lot of noise around the house. If I missed something, some of these guys on here, you know, like I learned what a 3M Trizac belt was for. I used to use those belts all the time. I really didn't know what they're for. It's pretty neat to sit there and listen to someone talk about what it's for. And I'm like, that's what it's for. Now I know. And it's just, I'm that much better of a knife maker for it, you know, for knowing that knowledge. So, okay, guys. So anyways, what I like to say at the end of every video, don't worry about the haters. Just let the haters worry about you. Okay? All right? Just, you know, do your thing. And it'll all... I think if everybody just does their thing, it all falls together. Okay? All right. So I'll see you later. Have a good one.